Most people focus on what they eat. Very few understand when protein should be eaten, and that mistake keeps insulin high, inflammation active, and belly fat stubborn. Today, I want to explain the HB1 protein timing trick that directly targets abdominal fat and why grass-fed meat plays a critical role in this process. Now let's break this down clearly. Belly fat is not simply stored energy waiting to be burned, it is a biological response to a signal, and that signal is insulin. This is where most people are misled. They believe belly fat exists because they eat too much fat or too many calories, but the body does not store fat randomly. It stores fat when insulin tells it to. Insulin's primary job is not to manage sugar alone, its real role is to decide whether your body burns fuel or stores it. When insulin is elevated, fat burning is shut off completely. There is no negotiation. You can exercise, you can eat clean, but as long as insulin remains high, belly fat stays protected. Now here's the part most people never hear. Protein, although essential, still stimulates insulin, and when protein is consumed at the wrong time, especially late in the day, it keeps insulin elevated far longer than intended. That prolonged insulin exposure sends a continuous storage signal, particularly to the abdomen, because visceral fat cells are extremely sensitive to insulin. This is why someone can eat healthy, avoid sugar, and still struggle with stubborn belly fat. The problem isn't the food quality, it's the hormonal timing. Think about what happens at night. Your body is designed to repair, detoxify, and mobilize fat during sleep. But if insulin remains active into the evening, those processes are interrupted. Growth hormone is suppressed. Fat breakdown is blocked. Inflammation quietly increases. The abdomen becomes the safest storage site and the body holds onto it aggressively. This isn't a failure of discipline, it's basic physiology. Once you understand this, the frustration disappears. Belly fat is not a personal flaw or a lack of willpower, it's a signal mismatch. Correct the signal and the body responds rapidly. Insulin falls, fat burning resumes, and the abdomen, being the most insulin-sensitive area, changes first. When timing is aligned with biology, the body does exactly what it was designed to do. 20300 ward yes adoan ADD IGS and calorie 1 ards doan makioki ards. Amak hek it more pervesoan ADGA and ADD hak SAS. Most people assume fat loss is slow because the body resists change, but in reality the body responds immediately when the metabolic signal is corrected. This is exactly what happens when protein timing is adjusted, even for a single day. The body does not need weeks to understand a new instruction, it only needs clarity. When protein is consumed earlier in the day, insulin rises as expected, but then it is given enough time to fall back to baseline. That drop is what flips the metabolic switch. Once insulin falls, fat burning is no longer blocked, and the body transitions naturally into using stored fat as fuel. What makes this so powerful is the overnight effect. When the largest protein intake is shifted away from the evening, insulin is no longer competing with nighttime repair hormones. Growth hormone secretion improves, fat mobilization increases, and inflammatory signaling is reduced. This is why people often wake up feeling lighter, less bloated, and noticeably flatter through the abdomen after just one day. The body has not lost pounds of fat overnight, it has removed the resistance that was preventing fat loss from starting. This timing change also restores metabolic rhythm. The body is designed to process nutrients efficiently during daylight hours and shift toward repair and fat usage at night. Late protein disrupts this rhythm by keeping metabolic pathways active when they should be quiet. Early protein, on the other hand, respects circadian biology. It allows insulin to do its job and then step aside. That pause is where fat oxidation lives. The most overlooked benefit of this reset is appetite control. When insulin drops properly, hunger hormones stabilize. Cravings diminish. The body stops demanding constant input. What feels like discipline suddenly becomes effortless. This is not a trick or a diet strategy. It is a reminder that timing is a language the body understands instantly. When you speak that language correctly, the response is fast and unmistakable. 300 mords 80 ADD emociagis and KSON mordes do kip machinatia mor pardis aemanadial and digi india entity ADD hks anatius. Protein quality matters just as much as protein timing, because the body does not respond to all protein in the same way. When you consume meat, you are not only eating amino acids, you are also consuming the biological signals that come with that food. Grass-fed meat carries a very different metabolic message compared to conventionally raised meat. Its fatty acid profile is more stable, its omega-3 content is higher, and its inflammatory burden is significantly lower. This distinction becomes critical when the goal is to reduce abdominal fat, which thrives in an inflammatory environment. Inflammation and insulin are closely linked. When inflammatory signals rise, insulin sensitivity drops, forcing the pancreas to release more insulin to achieve the same effect. This keeps fat storage pathways active longer than necessary. Grass-fed meat minimizes this response. The body processes it with less metabolic stress, allowing insulin to rise briefly and then fall as it should. That clean rise and fall pattern is essential for unlocking fat stores, particularly in the visceral region. There is also the issue of amino acid balance. Grass-fed meat provides a more natural ratio of amino acids that supports muscle maintenance without excessive stimulation of insulin or MTR pathways. This means the body can preserve lean tissue while still entering a fat-burning state later in the day. In contrast, highly processed or grain-fed meats tend to overstimulate metabolic pathways that should be quiet, especially when consumed later in the day. Another overlooked factor is mitochondrial function. Grass-fed meat supplies nutrients that support mitochondrial efficiency, which directly impacts how well fat is converted into usable energy. When mitochondria function properly, fat does not accumulate as a defensive reserve. Instead, it is used. This is why people often notice not just physical changes, but also improved energy and mental clarity when they switch protein quality. The body is not struggling, it is finally being fueled in a way that aligns with its design. Expanded KAMPO TN 4 and 300 wards and Doan 80 DY Haiti IMG Kyosim wards, Donanmento O Quardas. And my Kmar Profis Inl ADDIGA and ADDD OKC late evening protein intake creates a metabolic conflict that most people never recognize. The body operates on a daily rhythm designed to alternate between feeding and repair. When protein is consumed too late, it forces the body to stay in a fed state precisely when it should be shifting into recovery. This keeps insulin and growth pathways active, delaying the transition into fat utilization. The result is not just slowed fat loss, but a quiet accumulation of visceral fat that occurs while a person believes they are doing everything right. At night, the body relies heavily on growth hormone to repair tissues, reduce inflammation, and mobilize fat from storage. Elevated insulin interferes with this process. When insulin remains active due to late protein consumption, growth hormone release is suppressed. Fat cells, especially those around the abdomen, remain locked. Over time, this creates the illusion of hormonal resistance when in reality the body is simply receiving conflicting instructions. There is also an effect on cellular cleanup. During sleep, the body activates internal recycling systems that remove damaged proteins and improve metabolic efficiency. Late protein intake disrupts this process by signaling that nutrients are still incoming. The body postpones cleanup, inflammation quietly increases, and fat storage becomes the safer option. This is why many people experience stubborn abdominal fat despite low carbohydrate intake and regular exercise. Once late protein is removed, the metabolic environment changes quickly. Insulin falls earlier in the evening, allowing growth hormone to rise naturally. Fat cells become responsive again, and visceral fat is no longer protected. Many people notice improved sleep quality, reduced morning bloating, and a visible change in abdominal tightness within a short period of time. These changes are not accidental. They reflect the body returning to its natural overnight program, where repair takes priority and fat is no longer needed as a defensive reserve. Let me leave you with this. Your body is not broken. It's responding perfectly to the signals you give it. Change the signal, change the outcome. One day of correct protein timing, paired with clean grass-fed sources, can shift insulin, calm inflammation, and unlock belly fat that has been stuck for years. This isn't a diet. It's physiology working with your body, not against it. And once your body remembers how to burn fat, it doesn't forget.